Did you know that Final Destination had books? In total, there are 11 books within the Final Destination IP, released from 2005 to 2006. They have 9 novels and 2 comics in total. 3 of these novels are actually novelizations of the first 3 movies, but even so, that leaves us with 8 original stories set within the Final Destination universe. And before more popular YouTubers begin to talk about them, it's my mission to give you an in-depth look at each one. Now, if you want to buy one of these books for yourself, I'm sorry to say you might be out of luck. These relics went out of print years ago following their publishing company, Black Flame, going under. However, using the Internet Archive, you can get your hands on these novels. As of writing this video, I've read about 4 of the 8 original stories. I am still currently in the process of reading one of them, so maybe by the time this video goes up, I will have finished it. Over this month, I will be talking about all of them, starting with Dead Man's Hand. Dead Man's Hand is the 4th book in the novelization series, released in 2005 and written by Stephen A. Roman. Before I share my thoughts on the books, I'll give the main rundown of the plot, its characters, and how they'll meet their fates. Starting with the prologue, we're introduced to some kid named Aldous Escobar. Here's the purpose of introducing us to the location where our freak accident is meant to occur. A fancy glass elevator in Merlin's Tower, a fictional casino / restaurant / rich people spot in Las Vegas, being referred to as the tallest building in Vegas, being a little over 1,000 feet high. So if you've seen the recent film Final Destination Bloodlines, you're probably thinking of the Skyview, which I would like to believe took some inspiration from Merlin's Tower. I'm not sure yet. Maybe someday there'll be a statement or whatever that comes out that says they took some inspiration. The books begin with a faulty elevator slamming down on Aldous's junk, which the author really likes to remind you that is hurting. Like, there's 8 different mentions of this kid's balls. Whatever. And then, as he's aching over his balls, one of the windows gets blown out, almost sucking him out of the elevator on the way down. But he does make it down safely, so he complains about it. Nothing really happens, and he gets to go home. Psych! He gets crushed in his car by an out-of-control van driven by some teenagers and dies when his rib cage is crushed against the steering wheel, which punctures his organs. Swiftly moving on, we are introduced to our main characters, and can I just say, I hated them. First, we have Allie, a live fast, love faster, stubborn party girl who drunkenly married her ex-boyfriend, now husband, Tom. Tom is a huge nerd and apparently has such low sexual stamina that it's the reason they broke up back in college. I'm not joking. That was the reason they broke up. Mind you, by low sexual stamina, the book clarifies that while he can go on for like maybe a couple hours, it's not like Allie who can go on all day, every day. There is a point in the story where Tom jokingly refers to her as a fuck machine, which she is offended by, even though it's an accurate statement. Let's move on. I'll talk about it later, but I really hated these two. Their main conflict for this story is whether or not they want to stay married, since it was a barely thought out decision that Allie is unreasonably pissed about, considering it was her idea. They have this stupid back and forth that the author spends an infuriating amount of time on, whether they're fighting about their marriage, talking about having or actually having sex. Even at the most absolute inappropriate moments, like when they almost blew up in their motel room. There's even a scene where Allie tells Tom that her mom was also a bit of a sexual deviant back in her day, but she clarifies that her mom wasn't as bad as her, and for some godforsaken reason, claims that even if her mother was as bad as her, Allie probably would have gone out of her way to top her mother in that department. Again, I fail to understand why this was a necessary addition to the story. You didn't really need to hammer home that these two are sex pests. I kind of gathered that from the first 5 million chapters where most of their conversation was sex-related. Anyways, despite Allie having the most mixed thoughts on their marriage, She is actually the more avoidant in talking about it. She yells at him when he brings it up or even refers to her as his wife, changes the subject, and backs down anytime she tries to talk to him about it or when he tries to mention it. They're both very exhausting characters in their own ways, but Allie is especially so. And I say that because between the two of them, we see more into Allie's mind. Hell, even the chapters that I guess would be considered Tom-centric aren't really about him, as they quickly switch gears to being about Allie again. Next, we have Arlen. He is a loser by every definition, and the book will let you know that. He is a chronically broke gambler who works at a laundromat and survives off cup ramen and the $8 buffet at the bottom floor of Merlin's tower. He almost never has any money, and there's even a chapter where he lost so hard he couldn't afford the $8 dinner, which, I mean, in today's economy would be a godsend. He gambles literally every fucking day, and then comes home to watch a prostitute across the street, her name is Tina, with her clients because he can't afford her himself. I'm not kidding. It's established in his introductory chapter that he likes to watch Tina service her clients. He only got a freebie once when they initially met, and when he's not feeling sorry for himself or gambling, he is constantly ogling the women in this book, looking at their breasts or their legs, and sometimes when he's 5 seconds away from shitting himself, he's still looking at women inappropriately. With how much the author writes about sex in this book at completely inappropriate times, coupled with its snail pacing, it really shouldn't come as a surprise to anybody that this book was regarded the worst of the bunch. Next, we're introduced to Shauna, who is the most likable of the cast by a very low margin. She's the closest thing to being a complete coward of the group, despite the first chapter leading you to believe she has some level of courage. Not to mention, she got her start in her career by being a topless stripper, but she's scared of everything, I swear. She's a 23-year-old who moved to Vegas with the big dreams of being a dancer, something that she's wanted her whole life. She gets her big break and becomes a dancer for one of these shows at Merlin's Tower, Magipalooza, I'll put it in the video. And everything is perfect save for the big cats that she's forced to work with. Specifically, there was an incident with one of the jaguars which got loose while she was in the middle of the show, and it's presumed that it would have attacked her had it not been led away. In this same chapter, and the subsequent one, we're introduced to her boyfriend of a year and my second least favorite character, Warren. To Shauna, Warren is perfect in every single way. Tall, dark, and handsome. He's kind to her, and not kidding, this is in the book, was the first man who looked at her eyes first instead of her boobs. He's very protective of her, unmarried, and shares a love of roller coasters. And that's enough for Shauna. The bar is in hell. It gets worse when you read Warren's chapters. While he does seem to genuinely love Shauna and care about her well-being, their relationship reads more like a father-daughter relationship. He's constantly babying her and refuses to tell her about any of his problems, even when she desperately wants to be let in. There's even a chapter where, before she mentions her Jaguar troubles, she's talking to him about his case. I will not say anything about this case because, again, it's not really important. Like, as cool as it really isn't important, so I'm not going to mention anything about the case. She tries to get him to open up about it, and he doesn't. He's worried that she's too fragile to handle it, especially after he does hear about her big cat incident. And that really worries Shauna because, again, these two are very much in love, and you know, they think they're going to be a long-term relationship, and that's something you might want to communicate with your partner when the two of you plan on having a future together. He's also way too trigger-happy to kill the Jaguar. He's too trigger-happy to resort to violence in general, which only makes you think Shauna sees their relationship through rose-tinted glasses. It doesn't help the impression of their dynamic when you find out that he is 20 years older than her. Great. Real quick, before anyone says anything about their age gap, while I personally don't like it, or Warren for that matter, and think Sean is a little too young to be dating a man who was literally just starting out as a cop while she was still in diapers, there is very little to indicate that Warren's intentions are anything but pure when it comes to her. Even in his final moments, all he can think about is being reunited with her in the afterlife, and the pair staying together. And of course, they were both adults when they met, so it's technically okay. Not like it really matters, because this is Final Destination. You know what's gonna happen to them. This book drags a lot. So much so that the actual premonition doesn't happen until chapter 10, when you're halfway through the book. Okay, real quick. We've all taken an English class, and we've all had to sit through the diagram of a story. You have your exposition, your inciting incident, rising action, climax, falling action, the end of the story, resolution, whatever, the end. The inciting incident, something that's supposed to happen pretty early on in the book, takes half the fucking novel to actually happen. I'm not kidding. The book is 264 pages long. Jump to the end of page 132. That's literally when it starts. Because of this, I'm just going to quickly run down what happens between the character introductions and the premonition, because a lot of it could have easily been summarized or completely cut from the book. Allie decides she needs to balls up and talk to Tom, suggesting that they go to the restaurant at the top of Merlin's tower to do it. Warren is told by his partner, I think her name was Stephanie, I could be misremembering, editor me will put the name in the video. And she tells him that he needs to tell Shauna what's been happening in his case, since it's starting to wear him down so much that he's starting to consider retirement, which is something very important to tell the woman you want to spend the rest of your life with, especially considering if you're going to be unemployed and you ain't get a pension. I'm sure this 20-something doesn't want to be supporting the both of you. I'm not saying anything about the relationship, but I am saying it must be real weird being married to someone, or just dating, because they are only dating, being with somebody who's in the point of his life where he can consider retirement, and you're in the start of your career. Moving on. So, he brings her to the same restaurant to do it. Arlen goes to that restaurant because he's a fucking idiot and really thinks he should be eating expensive ass food when he can barely afford to fucking live. Allie's conversation is unproductive, and she keeps looking at Warren because he looks like a creepy ass man or a member of the mob with a young lady who won't stop crying, assuming that he's abusing her. Warren's conversation is unproductive because Shauna won't stop crying about her Jaguar incident and thinks Allie is a bitch for staring at him like he's a creep. And to be fair, I mean, for somebody who's so concerned about Shauna, he's not doing himself any favors by just kind of sitting there watching her cry. And Shauna isn't doing herself any favors by sitting here crying over her Jaguar incident instead of listening to her stressed out cop boyfriend, which was the whole reason why she wanted to go in the first place. Moving on. He doesn't end up telling Shauna about the case at all. Everyone decides to leave and end up in the crowded elevator, and the elevator promptly stalls and crashes. Mind you, I am skipping a lot of pages between everybody deciding to leave and the actual crash itself. There's glass breaking, windows are completely blown out, which is flinging people out of the elevator. Tom gets crushed when a bunch of people start freaking out, and he gets smashed up between the glass, which pierces through his body. Warren and Shauna are thrown out of the elevator and fall to their deaths. Allie almost falls out, but is held up by Arlen, who desperately tries to save her, only to lose his grip, and she also falls to her death. Now, curiously, we don't see Arlen die in the premonition, but it can be assumed he would have died anyways because, I mean, there are thousands of feet in the air. Well, only 1,000. Hundreds of feet in the air in a glass elevator. Right as Allie splats across the pavement, she's back in the elevator. It was a premonition. Naturally, she freaks out and tells everybody that it's going to crash. Everyone thinks she's crazy and hurl abuses at her before trying to push her out of the elevator. Warren decides to be an cop and use his big boy authority to intimidate her into shutting the fuck up, but it doesn't work. So he decides to get her and Tom off the elevator. Tom gets off no problem, but Allie gets stuck as the elevator doors close on her, almost crushing her. Think back Aldous from the prologue. Tom and Warren fight to get the door open as the buttons fail. Nothing is responding, nothing is opening, nothing is closing, except for the elevator on Allie, and she actually gets genuinely scared here, thinking that she's going to die there. Arlen, big boy over here, okay, steps in, being a former mechanic or whatever, he worked on elevators back in the day, and helps to get the door open. And instead of thanking him, Warren immediately antagonizes him for taking so long to help. Because that's just what Warren does. He can't say thank you, he's just a dick. Arlen, Warren, and Shauna get out of the elevator too, for whatever reason. Trust me, I went back in the book and looked. Warren, I guess, makes sense because he's an asshole cop and likes to instigate in situations where he really doesn't need to be involved. My best guess for why Shauna came out was because Warren left and Shauna has no mind of her own. I couldn't tell you why the hell Arlen got out of the elevator, but whatever, these three get out of the elevator too. Tom and Allie are rightfully upset and Warren decides to be a big boy asshole cop and chew them out, till he remembers that had Shauna been in that position, he'd probably also be freaking the fuck out, and he decides to chill. Before he can question Allie on her freak out, the elevator actually collapses, and they all watch helplessly as everyone inside is doomed to their fate. This shit gets brutal fast. It does not end at just the elevator. The elevator eventually goes sailing off of its wires, sending people and debris out into the road, which causes a massive pileup, Final Destination 2, oh shit, and crushing passerbyers. If you're just walking on the street, boom, slab of glass, I don't know. Aldous' asshole manager, his name is Tony by the way, sees this, and all he can think of, as people are dying, is how much trouble he's going to be in for not listening to Aldous and getting the elevator properly looked at before he is promptly crushed by a slab of concrete falling off of the tower. Back to our main group, Warren immediately goes straight into big boy asshole cop and decides to accuse Allie of having some involvement in what happened. Again, he's off the clock, but I fucking hate Warren. Like, I get he's just doing his job, but sometimes he really is just being a dick. And wherever you stand on the police, whether you hate them or love them or whatever the fuck, Warren is, in every definition, an asshole cop, sticking his nose often where it doesn't belong and pushing around his authority. Speaking of which, as Tom is jumping to Allie's defense, Warren threatens to beat him up because he's a fucking asshole. Tom backs down, but only after Allie tells him to, and then Warren starts hounding her for information, which Tom recommends that she shuts up and get a lawyer first, which she ignores. Mind you, the author establishes that Allie is actually quite smart, despite having the stereotypical party girl vibe. I don't know. But easily, like, one of the most common legal advice of all time, she just refuses to take. Awesome. Allie tells him that it was a premonition, and everybody believes it's bullshit. Both Shauna and Arlen help Allie come to the conclusion that it was a premonition, but even they don't believe what the fuck he's saying. Then they get interrogated by the cops. Then by the FBI. Allie sticks to her story, which pisses everyone off. Mind you, this could have been avoided if she had just lawyered up, but that would be smart. And Allie is not smart. They end up being in there for hours. I don't remember if Shauna was in holding or not, but Arlen and Tom most definitely were. Warren wasn't in holding, however, because Warren is a cop and can do whatever the fuck wants and is actually watching the interrogation go down, despite the fact his partner is telling him that he cannot be involved because he is just as much a witness as everybody else is. But who cares about that? It's time for people to start dying. The 5 survivors are being escorted in a van when they get into a car crash. The driver dies right away, getting bisected in the process and splattering his blood all over everybody. But his legs are still on the gas, so the van continues to accelerate. It's stated that it felt like death had taken control of the vehicle as everyone finds it impossible to get out of their seatbelts. And the vehicle is crashing into pretty much everything it possibly can to do damage to everyone inside. And Allie is set free by Warren, doing something useful for once, and that's when she notices that the wheel is moving as if somebody is controlling it. She pries the driver's legs free and stops the van right before they crash into an oil tank, which, would have blown them the fuck up. They're all taken to the hospital where Shauna and Tom are treated for minor injuries. Warren is still in doubt about Allie's theory that death is hunting them, which I can understand. It does seem pretty far-fetched, but also at the same time, how the hell do you explain everything that's happened to you thus far? The doctor comes up and relays to everybody what the condition of Shauna and Tom is like, and tells Warren that Shauna is being tested for HIV. Warren, for a moment, is worried that Shauna may be cheating on him. Honestly, she should be the one that's worried because, I'm not gonna lie, the story, while not outright saying it feels like there's the implication that Warren might have a thing for his partner, who, by the way, is also in the hospital because she was injured in the crash, because she was there. I don't know why she was there, but she was there. However, the doctor quickly quells his concerns and says that since the driver got his blood all over them when he died, it's just a precaution, and recommends that everybody gets tested for HIV. Remember this for later. Everyone gets released and decides to go their separate ways. And this is when shit hits the fan. Shauna heads back to work to get her stuff since they're temporarily closing. She laments that the possibility that she might be out of work soon, and is even fearful of having to return to her job as a stripper because it's Vegas, and when a show closes, another show takes its spot just like that. However, she doesn't have to worry about that very long. She's in the casino because while she was working at she gets the idea to actually check it out and maybe gamble, as while she was working there, the dancers are not actually allowed to go there to keep up the mystique of the showgirls, because she gets crushed by a loose Jaguar, the vehicle, and all of her bones are slowly broken in her attempt to stop the vehicle from continuing to move. The wheel rolls over her ankles and crushes it, and her pelvic bone gets damaged because that's where the car hit her. The car does eventually come to a stop when she is pinned into a slot machine where her head is caved in to the point that coins from the slot machine are able to fall out of her mouth. It's easily the best kill of the book, so it's honestly a shame that not only is it the first kill, it happens to the arguably least deserving character. Warren is the next to meet his fate, where after hearing about what happened to Shauna, goes into overdrive after the man he's been hunting throughout the book. Side note, I highly recommend reading his chapters, but specifically the chapters where he's working on his case. I don't like Warren, but his chapters are by far the best subplot in the book. It also kind of humanizes Warren and almost lends some understanding as to why he's a dick 24/7, especially to Arlen. I left out a lot of Arlen antagonization that's done by Warren, but it's pretty egregious. After chasing the man throughout the city, he corners him in an alley and shoots him dead. Something that he knows will get him into trouble since he technically wasn't supposed to be working the case at all because of the investigation into the elevator collapse. But Warren doesn't care because don't worry about it though, because he doesn't have to worry about that for very long as some wires get loose. See, what happened was while he and the man he was chasing were in a shootout, the man's bullets actually hit these wires which were hanging overhead. And after he killed him, the wires get loose, and unfortunately for Warren, he's standing above a piss puddle, and he gets electrocuted. Listen, I don't like Warren, but it is kind of fucked that his cause of death is electrocution by piss puddle. It is somehow only the second most pathetic death, though. While the method itself is underwhelming, the description is kind of brutal, letting you know that there was just no chance for Warren to walk out of that alive. And then you get a small paragraph about his hope of being reunited with Shauna. But honestly, with how much of an ass he was in life, I think he's gonna have a lot of problems with doing that. Arlen is next on the chopping block. His involvement with the elevator collapse earned him a bit of fame in the eyes of Tina, the prostitute that he's been lusting after, and because of this, she offers to fuck him for free. Now, if you're like me and you don't care for sex scenes, I highly recommend skipping to the second to last paragraph of page 247, where, after being scared by a neon sign crashing into the room, his legs clamp down onto Tina's head, and in turn, she clamps down onto his head, biting it right off. She immediately runs away, leaving him behind to beg for her help as he bleeds out. Yeah, that's how Arlen dies. You're not missing anything. Arlen gets his little Arlen bitten off and perishes. After learning that most of the group is dead, Allie decides that they need to hightail it out of there. And in the middle of the night, that's exactly what she and Tom do. Except the car proceeds to break down in the middle of nowhere due to a blown out tower. But it's okay because Tom brought a spare and he actually knows how to change a tire. Allie keeps watch over him so that he can change the tire, especially when a truck starts getting close to them and it causes her a bit of worry. Luckily for her, Tom does it. He changes the tire. Only to get hit by the truck because the car jack collapses, and that scares him so much that he jumps in the way of the road and gets squashed. Don't ask me the logistics. I don't know. Allie makes it back home and she is drowning in grief. Not only is Tom dead, but everyone hates her, wishing that she had died instead. It's so bad that she doesn't even tell Tom's parents that they got married before he died because they especially despise her. And when I say that they collectively wish that she had died instead, I don't even mean they wish she had died instead of Tom. I mean, they had wished Allie had died instead of every single victim of the elevator collapse. I didn't like Allie, but even I thought that was fucked. Luckily for those people, they get their wish as the doctor from before calls up Allie and informs her that she tested positive for HIV, as the cop who had gotten bisected and subsequently got his blood all over everybody ended up having it. Despite it being a death we don't actually get to see, as the book ends almost immediately after she gets her diagnosis, it's pretty fucked up. Because not only is she doomed to a slow and painful fate, but she's going to be a social pariah the entire time. I almost felt bad for her until I remembered the first half of the book and how much I did not like her. I wanted to like this book. I really did. But I didn't. And not only did I not like this book, I can't really recommend you read the book at all. At least not in its entirety. It's slow, the characters are pitifully unlikable, and there are many moments that just feel tone deaf in favor of a sex joke. Going back to when Allie and Tom almost got blown up in their motel room, Allie was in the shower when this occurred, so she's in her birthday suit when they get outside. And as they're outside, there is a crowd that gathers because obviously there's a huge fucking explosion. And among those people watching is an old man who notices that Allie is very, very naked. And he is very unsubtly ogling at her, which surprisingly both Tom and Allie seem to be okay with. I'm guessing they're using humor to deflect from the fact that he was staring at her. I mean, neither of them really rushed to cover Allie up, so maybe she's an exhibitionist. I don't know. I don't care. They joke along with him, and he basically prepositions Allie for sex or whatever. And, like, they talk about it later, and Tom's, like, mildly jealous, but not really because sex. Like I said, the majority of Tom and Allie's dialogue, when it's not about their marriage, is about sex or something sex adjacent. Like how much he really wanted her to cosplay as this one Star Trek character because he thought it'd be hot. I don't know. I don't care. The female characters, as I said, are sexualized to all hell. There's not a single female character who isn't analyzed in a sexual sense, or at least doesn't have her physique brought up in the conversation. Not even Warren is safe from this, and mind you, he's all about Team Shauna, presumably. The men are either pathetic, assholes, or both. And it's honestly a shame because Roman is a talented writer, and that definitely shines in him writing Warren's investigation chapters. Hell, even if the sex scene is awkward, it's not written in an overly explicit way, which is kind of a relief considering I was not looking forward to it. He uses a bunch of metaphors, so it's not very explicit as to what acts are being committed, but you can get a good idea of what they are. I'm not sure what he's written in the past or if he's even still writing now, but if he had just picked up the pace of the book, I feel like I would have ended up enjoying it. The kills are fine enough. I feel like Roman could have saved Shauna's death for the middle of the book, seeing as how it was the best kill, but otherwise I'm kind of satisfied with how they all went out. If you're interested in reading Dead Man's Hand, read Warren's chapters, the premonition and the accident itself, and the subsequent deaths. That's all you really need to read. If I remember to, and I don't get in trouble for it, I will link Dead Man's Hand in the description below for anybody who wants to read it. I don't know why you would want to, but I will. Also, the books have a wiki page. The one for Dead Man's Hand is incomplete, but it's there, if you're interested. Thank you so much for watching this video. It's my first time recording a video in this sense with the review style. I've wanted to do this for a while, but I'm heavy on procrastinating, and obviously my channel isn't that big, so it's not like uploading videos is really my top priority. I said I would try to get all these videos out within the month, but we'll see, because I do have a lot of things outside of this going on. If you like this video, please leave a like and a comment at least. That helps the algorithm, I think. Subscribe.